Welcome to the Lucas Oil Motorsports Hour. This week it's the America's Fair Pulling Nationals presented by General Tire. We're in Hamburg, New York, just outside of Buffalo. Of course, Niagara Falls very close as well. Ken Stout and Leslie Mears ready to call all the action for you, and our good friend Crash Gladys will keep up to speed with everything down there at trackside. This is a huge fair, a huge pull. We're down to the final couple of pulls here for the season, and the points are tight.
It's all about stamina and endurance at this point in time in the season. It's been a long, tough season. These guys have a lot of wear and tear on their vehicles, and if they can hold it together here through the end, they'll find themselves on top, just like Steve Boyd and his green streak with a narrow 1-point lead over this guy, Brad Moss, and the young buck.
And take a look at all the billet aluminum on that machine. The steering wheel, of course, the shifter levers, also the brake pedals. It is a thing of beauty. Another show vehicle here. A great-looking John Deere 7930. Brad Moss behind the wheel.
You know, and these guys went cold turkey into pulling in 2007 when they debuted this tractor. They'd never been involved in any type of truck and tractor pulling before, had always been big fans of pulling, especially this class, and looked up to the Mastersons throughout and decided, hey, I want to jump in there with the big boys.
And that's how you start one off. 318.23, a solid effort out of Brad Moss. And you talked about these guys coming into the pulling world back in 2007. Well, they already have some forward thinking, some innovative thinking. If you take a look at the front of this tractor, it's got some cool stuff on it.
Well, you can see those airbags up there, kind of a little bit of an air ride suspension to try to keep that front end just softly balancing on top of the dirt out there instead of crashing down like it normally does.
All right, well, we'll find out if that is good enough to hang on to the lead here. There's a lot of great tractors inside of this category that he'll have to deal with, but 318.23 is strong by anybody's measure.
A solid effort. You know, it's always very tricky to be the test puller out here on the track. You know, yes, these guys did pull last night, so they've got a feel for what this dirt in Hamburg has for them. They've got their notes to refer back to from the last couple of seasons. But it's always tough because it's a brand new track, it's a brand new day. You never know what it's going to have in store for you. And a lot of these other guys standing back in the pits are watching what everyone else is doing and getting an advantage that way.
Our next competitor is Dennis Schauber, and you can see him looking back there and watching a crew member as well as they line this thing up as square as possible. The tractor is called the Hunted. You can see some of the options back there that it takes to make one of these tractors competitive. Where the chain is going to go, of course, needless to say, needs to be extremely strong.
And of course, that hooking point tied up into the belly of the tractor. And you know, just a very strong piece there. As you see the main chain finally getting dropped down there, they're going to hook up the safety chain as well. So if something were to go wrong with the tractor, the sled operator can go ahead and pull that and shut down the tractor. You know, Dennis Schauber ran with the Schnickers, who are always tough with their red machines, and when somebody couldn't go on their team, he would come out on the road with them, and finally bought this 7810 himself in 2008 to campaign it on the circuit with him as well.
It really takes his time to give that thing full throttle, front end up and down, and that's costing distance every time it bobbles up and down like that. 310.95, well short of what he needed here today. So just didn't have the setup quite right. Maybe the RPMs didn't get right where he wanted them. Maybe not the proper gear. I mean, there's so many options, so many things these guys have to literally guess at. Obviously an educated guess based on your knowledge of the sport, but there's a lot of options there.
And they can make adjustments as they go. And you can see he pedaled it just a little bit off of the starting line. You know, you saw in and out of black smoke, you know, as he's trying to get those RPMs up, build that boost pressure up before he lets the clutch out. You know, and you can adjust your air pressure. As you mentioned, there's probably about 10 to 15 different things that they can make adjustments on back there in the pits before they even pull it to the line, let alone the things that they do at home when they put it on the dyno to kind of test it out before they take it out on the track, or just routine maintenance. You know, very, very complex sport. These drivers make it look so easy out here that you don't even think about all those other things going on.
The Lucas Oil-backed machine driven by Greg Boyd. Of course, the Boyd Farms will come out here and field 3 tractors inside of this category. This is Greg. His brother Mike will also have one. And then, of course, his father. And these guys have won multiple championships inside of the category. They are always a threat. But there's some big farming families that have big-time rivalries that go on inside of this category. Greg Boyd driving the Green Streak 2.
Moving so much good smoke out of that stack. He's got to put up a good distance here.
And we have a new leader. How about 329.23? Exactly what you would expect out of these guys. And he's going to take that information and go back and give it to his father and his other brother. And then, of course, they're going to come out here and be a threat 2 more times before this pull is over with.
That smoke clears up so nicely. You can tell he's got that great narrow stream of smoke. And what that means is that they're pushing air in and out of that motor very, very fast. These guys have an unlimited size turbo. The turbo on the Green Streak 2 here, probably a little more than 5 inches in diameter. So this great big turbo pushing air down in, making it all happen for these guys.
Your General Tire top 3 has Greg Boyd atop the group, followed by Brad Moss and Dennis Schaubert. The Lucas Oil Motorsports Hour is brought to you by General Tire. Unleash the Fury. Rockstar Energy Drink. Party like a rock star. And by Canada All Natural Pet Foods. The Lucas Oil Motorsports Hour is brought to you by Geico Power Sports. Insurance for all things that move you. Welcome back to the America's Fair Pulling Nationals presented by General Tire as we continue on here in the Pro Stock category. And Scott Typen strapping down inside of the tractor called Barely Getting By that is typically campaigned by Steve Wishmeyer.
Scott Typen, though, the driver, a former puller inside of the category, you know, taking a break from truck and tractor pulling, but getting inside here of the Barely Getting By machine, and he knows how to get it done.
Love the smokers as they watch these guys come out here. Charging hard, and let's see his distance, 318.58. So just barely takes over second place by about 1/4 of an inch.
You know, an interesting run there for Scott Typen as you get a look at that great looking oil pan underneath there. Everything works out of that oil pan. If you don't have that oil pan on there, you got bad news there. But the front end down during the entire run, so maybe a little nose heavy there. One of those adjustments that they've got to make back in the pits to try to get the most out of their machine.
And I said 1/4 of an inch. I should have said 1/4 of a foot, so about 3 inches or so. But that's how close he gets out here for a position as we watch the next of the Boyd family tractors to roll out here. This one's called Green Streak, and it's driven by Pops Boyd. This is Steve. Once again, you can see just very meticulously backing these tractors up. It is so critical, and you watch these guys at the beginning of the pull walk around with a screwdriver, and they start picking at the track, and they know by what that density feels like when they put that screwdriver into the dirt where the grip is. It's amazing what these guys see and what they feel when they come out here and take a look at what we look at as just regular old dirt.
And you know, the track is about 40 feet wide and, of course, 330 feet long at least, and they will maneuver from side to side and go the full width and the full length of the track to make sure that they find the most pristine area out there to set up the machine. Another great thing about these Pro Stockers is that beautiful black smoke that you see. And it's all due to the fact that they've got that great water injection system that keeps things, you know, cool inside the engine. So we're bringing up the RPMs, and as they get a little bit more boost pressure, they want to get it to about 80 pounds of boost. They turn that water injection on, and that puts forth the black smoke. They let out the clutch at 120 pounds of boost. And tell you what, it's curtains from there because they're full throttle down the track.
How about 337.37 feet? We said that Greg Boyd would go back and give him some information to work with. That's exactly what's happened here. Of course, Steve Boyd took that information and made it even better yet as he surpasses his son here by 8 feet.
Well, and that's one of those cases where they took the screwdriver from in the track and they started tuning up on that motor out there, and you know, puts 8 feet on that run, definitely wicked it up a little bit, leaned it out probably a little bit to make it run a little bit hotter, get a little bit more horsepower. You can see he's putting up the one like, hey, is that good enough for number one?
Over here, John, we've had a lot of really good, solid, straight runs, but we're going to go with the floating finish because of that. Is that correct?
Yeah, the weather permitting here, we have a rule in our rule book that says we can set a full pull at 300, 310, or 320, or the floating finish. Well, with threatening weather coming in on this Premier Crop Insurance Pro stocks, it looks like we ought to do that so we can get the show in tonight.
And there you have it. So these guys need to get after it hardcore. They're going to have one chance at it, one chance only.
I tell you what, a big number put up there, that 337 and 37 is a very tough mark to beat. And, you know, these guys have a lot of tuning to do if they're going to make it out there that far.
Next competitor up. It's called Contents Under Pressure, driven by Troy Schradel. Looking run, slowly pulling that one down though, right at the very end of the pull, 316.75. And man, I'll tell you, when you take a look at what the Boyds just did at 329 and 337, and you take a look at a pull like that, that is solid. I mean, that's a good pull, but know that you are light years away. That speaks volumes.
Well, you know, Troy's got to be happy with this run. Again, 316 on any other night in the summer, going to put you in the top of the heap. He had the front end up, maybe bouncing just a little bit, but it was still a really, really good run and a great setup on his machine. It just shows you the R&D that a lot of these teams are doing. Like the Boyds have a dyno at their shop, and they take these motors off and they run them on the dyno frequently to try to gain just that extra edge of horsepower.
Well, it's working right now. They are 1 and 2 on top of the field with a third one yet to go. The Lucas Oil Motorsports Hour is brought to you by Speedco, Truck Lube and Tires. Welcome back to Hamburg, New York. This is the America's Fair Pulling Nationals presented by General Tire, and a good look right here at the Hurricane Alice, driven by Travis Doman. This tractor looks a bit different. Of course, always a sea of green in this category, and once in a while you see a little red, but white is different.
The only AGCO that you will see in the field is a DT 220 that's been converted to be in our 10,000-pound pro stock category, and even a little bit different engineering here. All of the other tractors that you're going to see have the stack coming straight out of the top. These guys have the stack coming out of the side. You know, it is white, it is different, but it runs just as hard as everyone else.
Nice onboard shot from the GoPro camera and a solid effort out of Travis. 322.12, good enough for third place right now. You said this one pulled just as hard as everybody else. There's great proof of it.
Well, he had a nice, straight, narrow shot, and that's what helped him out on his run as well. Got those RPMs up strong early. You can see that smoke clean up. The tires are hooked up, and then by the time that E3 box tops off, gets a little bit of nudge to put the front end up in the air just a tiny little bit as he drags it on out there to put himself in the hunt.
Justin, that's our air flap right there. That's how we shut a diesel off, but somehow on his run, that closed accidentally. He was on a winning pass right there. That hurts. Yeah, it was last night's winner.
Now keep in mind, for a gas-powered engine like in your car, you turn the key off, it shuts the spark off to the spark plugs. These engines do not have spark plugs, so how do they shut them down? Well, they just shut the air off to the motor.
Where's us?
That's Buffalo or Hamburg middle school or something right there.
Obviously taking a look at the weather that is rolling in. That was a great shot before it too of the air shut off. And by the way, for you import racers that love those turbochargers, now that was a turbocharger. That thing's about as big as the entire engine for some of those cars. Those things are massive, and it takes a lot of air to spool one of those things up, but they're getting it done. Talking about spooling one up, how about that? A solid pull there out of Rodney Schnitker, 337.48, and we have a new leader.
This meltdown machine is just money when it gets out on the track this year. These guys have tuned it up in the last 2 years in competition, worked out all the bugs. You can see the dirt is flying. It's even putting the mud flaps up on the sled a little bit there as it strolls on out to take the lead.
Boy, very cool. Solid effort out of Rodney in the meltdown. Up next will be the billet binder. And we talked about a sea of green. You see a little bit of red. Here's one of the red tractors, Stuart Mays behind the wheel.
You know, Stuart had some problems earlier on in the season, grenaded one of his motors, got it all put back together, able to make it up here to Hamburg. So, not too many passes on this new motor here. So he's just going to give it his best effort and cross his fingers and hope it doesn't do what it did to him out there in Macon, Missouri.
Yeah, those are expensive power plants inside of these things. You hate to grenade one. Slowly spooling it up. Here we go.
His eyes intently focused on that smoke. That's how he's driving this machine, not by the gauges like some other drivers.
Oh, man, another really solid pull here at 333.77. I mean, a really good effort there. Good enough for third place. I mean, there's a couple of really tough guys out there at 337 up in front, but a solid effort out of Stewart.
And these red tractors really showing how the engineering has progressed and that they can battle right up there with the John Deeres.
Now, we saw Greg Boyd come out here a little bit earlier, 329. We said they'd use that information to go back to the camp with. They did, and Greg Boyd, his father there with the Lucas Oil shirt on, took over the lead. Then Rodney Schnitker, standing next to him with the mustache, came out and bettered that mark by just a little bit. Now we come back to the Boyd camp, tractor number 3. We saw Greg come out, do well. We saw the father, Steve, come out, do better. Now, can they better that mark one more time with Michael Boyd behind the wheel and the Green Streak X? Well, I promise you, Rodney Schnitker's hoping not, but I wouldn't count on that, I'll tell you, because this Boyd team is extremely talented.
And the more information that you have to pass on to your teammates, of course, the better you're going to perform out here. And, this could be third time's the charm where they finally figured out. Nobody else in this Pro Stock category has the kind of information that the Boyd team has, and it's really showing out here on the track.
A floating finish line. Here we go. He's got to get past 337.48. And he's charging hard. A solid-looking effort. And, ladies and gentlemen, he's going to steal the win from Rodney Schnitker. How about a 339.51? Man, oh, man, that is tractor pulling right there.
And check out the front end just dangling off the dirt out there. He's got the right arm stiffing out. He's looking at the sideline. He knows there's only 2 feet difference between his run and the last one. It's too close to call from the seat. Got to wait to get word from the officials.
Good effort out of the Boyd camp here today, using those 3 tractors to their advantage. Boyd & Sons Green Streak Experimental gets it done.
But it's just amazing to see those awesome distances by our pullers out here. It used to be you only saw them go 300, 339. Just shows you what kind of great power they've got.
All right, well, as you might imagine, Crash Gladys is all over, and she's standing down with our winner. Crash?
Well, guys, first we had Greg. He thought he was the hot shot. Then we had Steve beating him. But, Michael, this one's all about you. You are the winner in Hamburg.
Thank you. It's a team effort. We converse weights and gears and whatnot between the 3 of us. But, it's a team effort. We appreciate coming. We need to thank Lucas Oil. If it wasn't for them, we couldn't do this. And my crew at home at Boyd & Sons, great bunch of people that help us. If we didn't have good help, we couldn't do this.
All right, the super mods are up next. The multi-engine tractors, 10,000 horsepower. Stay with us. The Lucas Oil Motorsports Hour is brought to you by Darden Machinery. All right, let's take a look at the points here for the MagnaFlow exhaust products. Super modified category, everybody's chasing the Rockstar Dirt Slinger and Bill Leishner one more time. He's trying to win this championship in back-to-back years. First one to hook up to the sled will be the LD Nation man. He is a character, but very, very tough.
Well, and he's made some changes to his machine from earlier in the season. He did have his 4 automotive reciprocating engines kind of stacked on top of each other and tied into a gearbox at 2 different points. He's decided that he's going to go with the outboard style motors. He's going to tie them together and then tie them into that gearbox. He thought that he lost a little bit of his power with the other setup, and he's going to be able to make more power and get greater distances and better hookup with this new setup.
Slow down. Oh, man, stuff flying off everywhere. It looked like one of the hoses flew off right at the very end. I dare say, a fuel line. I hope not, but nonetheless, I mean, he almost went through the retaining wall down there. He was charging hard.
Loving that new horsepower he's getting from his new setup. Just shows what a great track we're going to have here for these mods. They put those 30.5s into the track. You can see there 9 weights in the box to try to stop these guys at the end as that sled tops out at almost 200,000 pounds of rolling weight at the end.
One more time.
He's battling it in there.
He's going, man. Slinging dirt everywhere. Can't see where he's at. I mean, he knew he was down there at the end. Finally had to get out of the throttle. I'm telling you, he would have hit the retaining wall. He had to check up. That one was good. Look at the dirt that those things move. And dirt down there waving that red flag saying, shut it down, LD, shut it down.
And with a distance like 354 and change, you've got to think here that the officials are going to automatically reset the sled, which is what we're hearing from our crew here. But while they're taking a minute to reset the sled, we got a chance to talk to some other pullers about what they think about LD Nation.
All the competitors in our class are very tough. The guys we don't want to overlook, the one guy is LD Nation, and he will come up and thump you. He's been, I call him, he's been sandbagging. But I think he's here with a bunch of changes to his piston tractor, and his son Brett's working on the turbine and the piston tractor. They're excellent pullers. LD's been around a long time. If anybody's going to kick my butt, I'm sure it's going to be LD.
LD, he's a good guy. I mean, last year we broke a planetary, and he said, I have anything you need, and we worked on it last year on Friday night and got to run again Saturday. Our mag went bag up there at Freeport. He had the bolts for it. I mean, he had everything we need. He's got like a parts store on wheels. I mean, if you need a bolt, he's got it. I think he just has the boat man come stock his trailer. He's a good competitor, but he's your friend before. But when, like he said before, I put that helmet on, he's out there to win just like everybody else is.
We get along great. We're good friends, but on the track, we are after each other.
And, you know, what you don't see with the helmet on with LD Nation is his personality, because he is second to none of anybody out here. That man has some fire inside to this day. Don't let that age fool you. When he comes out here, he is ready to win.
And he's been on the track in a lot of different vehicles, an old school drag racer, raced a lot of other things, and here bringing the Speed Coat Indian Outlaw at you with just as much fury as he did that piston tractor.
And the Indian Outlaw comes in at 299.86.
And even though we're looking at the difference in runs between the reciprocating motors and the turbines, you can still tell here lots of changes to the sled as they kind of rein these guys back in here as LD pilots his D11 down the track to set the new bark to beat.
Absolutely. So the first pull, unfortunately for him, will not be used. You talked about them resetting the sled, so that negates that effort. He'll be back with the piston tractor a little bit later on in the class. We'll continue on now, and the Bunnages have done a great job here. The Takes a Licking tractor, and he's in the hunt for a championship. I'll tell you, he is keeping Leishner solid and making him honest, because we're talking about less than 10 points between these guys as they get after it here at the end of the year.
Well, and the unique thing about this team is that they've got 2 different drivers that come out in competition. You've got Steve and Wayne, the brothers that campaign the tractor. They take turns driving night in and night out. A lot of guys will tell you that you need one person in the seat consistently to get a good feel of the track and what the tractor is going to do and how it's going to react. These guys hopping in and out of the seat, one pull after another, don't know how it felt the last time, but have enough inner knowledge of the workings of the machine that they can do a great job with it, which makes their team ultimately more unique than anyone else out here.
I think also the last guy that did the driving can come back with enough information to say, I think this is what we should do. And of course, both guys being able to do that now very, very well. Oh yeah, there's another cloud of dirt, man. Talk about slinging some stuff. He was getting after it right there. And Bunnage goes 3:17.94. Excellent job there as he will take over the lead by some 18 feet.
You know, a unique track combination we've got out here. Those tires are digging in hard. They're almost burying the driver in a shower of dirt there at the end, where they got to just hope that shield's down on their face mask and just keep in the throttle and listen for it to buzz up when those tires finally dig in hard.
We'll back up our next competitor to the sled. This is Sean Swearingen and another excellent looking machine. Show quality stuff here. It's called the Joker. Sean knows what it takes to win. He's won a championship inside of this category. He's beaten the absolute best. He's come out here with a limited effort in 2010, but always a threat whenever he shows up. .39, good for second place, just a little bit behind Wayne Bunnage. Sled rolling back there, they'll get him disconnected, but Sean Swearingen, and again, it comes back to those fine decisions. Maybe it was an air pressure choice. Hard to say what it was. Maybe just got a little too aggressive at the start. Whatever it was, not enough to take over the lead from the Bunnages. The Lucas Oil Motorsports Hour is brought to you by MagnaFlow Exhaust Products. The first thing you hear, the last thing you see. Great to see the kids out there involved and learning everything that goes on. And that's the one thing about farming families. If you're growing up on a farm, you're not very old and you're already running some stuff.
Well, it's a great advantage. I know as a farm girl growing up, my parents had a dairy farm there in southeastern Ohio. That we did everything. You drove tractors, you drove trucks before you were able to do all that kind of stuff. You wrenched on things, you changed oil, you did it all, and it's a great experience. And you learn about the inner workings of things and how it all comes together. It's
a great way to grow up, to say the least. All right, here we go. Our next competitor up. It's called the Double Down, driven by John Evans.
Good smooth run here for this turbine-powered machine.
Kind of curious to see how the turbines are going to fare out here. LD Nation, of course, kicked it off with a 299 pull. This one, 291.56. So it looks like the automotive-style power plants might have the advantage out here today. Might be a little early to say just yet, but we've talked about it before. Different tracks fare better for different style tractors, and I'll tell you, when it comes to the turbines, they are hard to beat. Just yet to see if that's going to be the combination here today.
When the turbines, again, as we've mentioned, have such a different driving style. They don't have any differentiations that they can make on the starting line. They can't kind of lay out of the throttle and walk it out there a little bit. When those RPMs come up on the turbine, they have to mash it and they have to give it all it's got right away. They can't walk it anywhere. So they've got full power all the time. It's not like the automotive engines where you can take some away and only run half throttle.
This one's called North American, driven by Joe Fintak. We don't see him all the time, but a great-looking machine.
Runs with one of our member state organizations in New York all the time. And you got that new unique combination where you've got the two outward in the back, the two straight in line, tied into that big black gearbox before the power goes to that rear end.
Joe Fintak with a distance of 247.23, so it'll be a tough day for him here today. He won't have an opportunity to win. Not quite far enough with that one.
It's just amazing. You can see a great shot there of just how far those tires dig into the track. You're looking at a good 6 to 8 inches, and that's a huge divot that they're leaving in the track. And you got to hand it to the track crew out here who fills in those holes. They roll it, they pack it back in. So each competitor has almost the exact same pulling surface as the one before him to make sure that it's a fair race. It's one of the only places where you've got to do that kind of track maintenance in the world of motorsports to ensure that everybody's got a fair shot at it.
And I don't know if you saw that on the camera, just a quick shot of it, but it looks like it's starting to rain out here a little bit, and that will throw these guys some curveballs. Don Nelson and the Texas Bullwhip is up next. We'll see if he can get a hold of this track. Dirt still looks pretty decent. Something flew off of the tractor right there at the last moment. It's kind of hard to tell what it was during the pull there. Maybe we'll have another look at it on the replay. He goes out and runs 295.5.
And you know, it just seems like the Texas Bullwhip team seems to get everything lined out on their machine, and then they've got some kind of mechanical break gracious, looked like they lost a blower belt there off that back right motor.
Absolutely, great call there, Leslie. You can see it's wrapped up around the pump there as well, but it has come off the engine. And a lot of times, typically something inside of the engine will break first, and the weak link will be the blower belt. That's not a bad deal. You don't want to keep rotating that thing if you don't have to. But as you know, he lost a lot of horsepower, some 2,500 to 3,000 horsepower lost there, and still went 295.5. So there was a lot left inside of that, which means there's some guys out here that can get up to that distance to take over the lead from Wayne Bunnage.
And it's all about bringing your A game and hoping that your vehicle can endure. Remember, we're almost to the end of the season. Lots of wear and tear on our motors. You know, they were freshened up at the beginning of the season, kind of took their motors to the spa and got all new rings and sleeves and all that kind of great stuff to make them perform great at the beginning of the year. But, you know, as the season wears on, you know, that can really do some damage and you can lose horsepower.
Did you say they took their motors to the spa?
That's almost exactly what it's equivalent to. They get refreshed, renewed, rejuvenated. They feel like a brand new motor when they come out of the box there.
Definitely a different term than what I've heard in motorsports before, but you know, sometimes you guys think a little different than we do, so it lays out perfect. It makes perfect sense, I must say. All right, well, here is Tim Howe with the tractor called the Turbulent Toy.
Buried in dirt out there, just moving those wheels so fast.
291.65 the distance for the Turbulent Toy. Again, not quite as good as the Indian Outlaw, the turbine tractor there, and certainly not good enough to take over the lead.
When it's almost like you can't see the sled on this shot here with so much dirt that they're moving. That means it's a little mealy on top that they're having a hard time digging in, and with those wheel speeds at over 140 miles per hour, they're finding that hookup point is hard to find.
The General Tire top three has Wayne Bunnage still on top. Some good ones yet to come. The Lucas Oil Motorsports Hour is brought to you by Speedco, Truck Lube and Tires. Welcome back to the America's Fair Pulling Nationals presented by General Tire. And watching them actually engaging that clutch there on Bill Leischner's front right power plant so they can get that thing fired up. That's what they do to engage them and get them to spool up one at a time. And of course, always a threat when he comes out here. Rockstar Energy Drink Back Machine. He and the Bunnages are in a tight battle here for the championship in this category. And as we all know, the Bunnages are leading right now, 317.94. So he's got his work cut out for him here today.
When you can see that if you look at those tires, you can see some raindrops on there, and that's going to make a huge difference. You know, the Bunnages were an early hook inside of the category. They did not have the rain to contend with. Now, it's not enough rain that it's going to cause any real problems for them. It's just going to be another variable to add into the mix that they've got to deal with, which will slightly change track conditions. So this is a point where these guys will go back to their notes. They'll try to find a spot where maybe it was a little overcast, maybe they had a little bit of sprinkles, to see exactly what they did to the vehicle to get it to perform at its best. And with a veteran like Bill Leischner, you know he's been in this situation before, so he's going to draw on that over 30 years of knowledge that he's got.
Visor coming down. Based on the previous pulls, he better pull it down. Nothing right there at the end. It was like he was up on top of the track, never really got a hold of it, and the distance drastically off the pace here. Certainly not something we're accustomed to seeing there out of Bill Leischner. 288, I mean, well short of what he needed here today.
You know, it seemed like it took those motors a little bit of extra time to clean up on the right side. You can see the rain coming at him, you know, battling it really tough out there, and it just didn't sound good either. It's like those rotors really pulled down there towards the end, almost like he lost one of them.
See the GoPro camera right there up beside his head. That's what that red flashing light was on, and that's what just gave us that great onboard shot as well. The rain definitely coming down. It's getting sloppy out there. Crash?
Jamie, with the inclement weather, I mean, it's coming down now. It's really going to change the conditions of the track. How do you then change your tractor to make up for that?
The track was a little dry anyhow, so we moved some weight back, and we're going to try and get it hooked up out of the hole, because when it rains like this a little bit, it'll make it slick. So we moved weight back trying to counteract that.
So they can dig down just a little bit deeper and get into some of that dry, fresh dirt. Maybe it'll help out.
And that's just what Derek Bargy is going to try to do here with the Judge. Some turbines, unlike what we've seen so far, a little bit smaller. They're T53s, and they're detuned a little bit also. The Bargy family likes to run them right about 1,800 horsepower, so you're looking about a little over 7,000 horsepower total. They feel it gives them a better way to hook up to the track, which might serve them as an advantage here on this track with the rain.
Now, we've talked about it with the turbines, you know, there's no way to gauge that. So when they let it loose, I mean, it is full max power. Maybe it does help him out. It's not going to help him out today, though. He talked about trying to dig down a little bit deeper as well, maybe too much. All the hopping definitely is not the preferred way, and it's going to cost him big time.
When it starts to hop like that right off the line, you saw that he kind of backed out of the throttle a little bit, started to get into it, thought, whoa, we got to get these hops, we got to back out of it, we got to try to save it a little bit. But with the turbines, once you back out of it, you lose all your RPMs and all your momentum, and then that's all you've got going forward. So again, didn't have enough mojo going forward.
So hats off to Derek for trying something different here, trying to make it work in some tough conditions. Unfortunately, just didn't go his way. All right, next competitor up, Jamie Austin with a tractor called the Predator. And we heard Jamie talking about trying to dig down into the dirt a little bit deeper. We'll see what his combination is and what his thoughts are to see if it works out for him. But you know, they're just dealing with a curveball, and we talk about it all the time. You know, if you draw an early pull or a later pull inside of the category, sometimes it helps you, sometimes it hurts you. Well, this time it might hurt you just based on weather alone.
And it looks like they've got an extra 450 pounds nestled right in around the hooking point on the rear of the tractor. And if you look at the front, there's no weight out there. So everything they've got moved back to the rear of the tractor in order to try to get that little bit deeper edge that they need to hook up.
Visor ready to come down. He decides to leave it up. Steering there, and yeah, just not going to happen here. Well short at 259.67.
And it was almost like he took a little bit away from his motors, you know, to try to do that, to try to load up the tires back there so that they, you know, didn't get too deep in it, but just didn't seem to be able to make it happen.
Yeah, and sometimes I wonder if these guys, you know, out-trick themselves, maybe overthink some of this stuff. I mean, we'll find out. We have some great tractors back in the field, of course, to come up here and make a run at it. But, you know, again, you know, you have to, as you can see some of the people up in the stands trying to stay dry, you have to think that these guys are going to try to do something, you know, out of the ordinary to make this happen and get out there. They're very competitive. They do know a lot of tricks and ways to get some grip out here, so that's what they're going to try. As once again, we watch the Bargy family back up. This time the tractor is called the Apache.
And he's taking note of what he learned from his previous run. He found that on the left side of the track, he had some holes over there. It caused a great amount of hops for him. Wasn't able to really drive the tractor to its full potential, so he's moved the sled over to the right side of the track. These guys can choose anywhere between the white lines. The track's about 40 feet wide to place that sled. He's moving away from those holes out there so he doesn't have to try to drive through it.
Right over by the sideline. Looks like he might have had to get out of it just a little early or get in the break. That will cost him, but the previous 7 tractors could not surpass the 300-foot mark. He comes out here and makes it happen. 306.67, a solid effort there. Also, the furthest distance of any of the turbine tractors in the field.
And boy, you just hate to see him get that close to the sideline over there when he's got just such a powerful run going on. Had to tap those brakes. Maybe could have got out there in the hunt for the lead.
Well, Wayne Bunnage is still on top, and it looks like there's some track left for these guys as Bargy just took over 3rd place. The Lucas Oil Motorsports Hour is brought to you by E3 Spark Plugs with Diamond Fire Technology and by General Tire. Unleash the Fury. And Team Lucas, taking your company's marketing to the finish line. The Lucas Oil Motorsports Hour is brought to you by R&L Carriers. One call, one carrier. Thinking about a little pizza for dinner.
Man, you can't do that to us.
No.
Can't do that to us. There's great stuff out there. One of the best fairs in the country up here in Hamburg, New York.
All right, our next competitor is Blake Stewart, brother of Michael Stewart, one of the young guns coming up into the sport, driving it down and dirty. Well, we saw Derek Bargy come out and do a good job in the previous pole. How about down and dirty? Just a little bit better at 306.93. That is just enough to take over third place by about 2 inches, 2.5 inches.
And it kind of squats and sits down there right off the line, doing a lot of steering since the front end is down, and he can control it out there, but stays in the throttle strong. He's really paid his dues, and that's helping him in the driver's seat by learning how to work on these motors.
So a solid effort there out of the down and dirty to earn some points here late in the season. A couple of tractors yet to go, including some really tough ones, and you can really see the rain coming down now.
It'll be interesting to see how the 2 piston tractors and the 1 turbine fare in this diverse weather that we have from the beginning of the class.
Yeah, and all 3 tractors coming up here have a ton of experience in the team. Of course, Ken Vini backing up right now has just been doing engine work, motorsports his entire life. A lot of experience out here as well. We'll find out what he uses and what combination he chooses. Also, LD Nation, we've talked about him. There goes Ken's wife. Slow down there, girl. It's slick out there. And then, of course, Shannon Leischner, but he has Dad behind him to help him make those proper decisions. Be very interesting to see what happens here.
Also going to be interesting to see how Ken fares here with the adversity that he has of that patched chassis from that breakage that he had just a few hooks ago.
And you can see the unpainted portion underneath it. You can also see the distance because we have a brand new leader. 328.20. Rain? What rain?
When you talk about he should have had some adversity with that patch chassis, it's all working in his favor here. That great wedge chassis, he's done a great job engineering on it and putting together a fantastic run to take the lead from someone who hooked in the very beginning of the class.
Absolutely, and it's still coming down as well. But Ken Vini coming out here, putting the combination together and making it work as you watch LD Nation back up to the sled. Yeah, it's filthy dirty because he was the first puller out of the box that hooked up to the sled. Drove it as far as you could drive it without going out of the course. They came back, changed the sled, put a little more weight in it. Of course, he fell to the back of the category. Give him some time to cool things off, get it all ready to go again. We'll find out how he does now.
When Leischner said they've done a lot of work on these motors before coming to this event this weekend, and he's got a fuel line off on that front right motor, and he feels it and he's going to shut it down early.
What a shame, too, because the first one out of the gate with this tractor was awesome. Yeah, you can see that fuel. It is under serious pressure. Those pumps really push some volume through. And talk about pushing some volume through. There's a fair amount of rain coming through as well. So this track is changing by the moment as we watch the final tractor pull up here. That is Shannon Leischner, son of Bill Leischner, who struggled out here as well at 288. Had his fair share of issues. We'll find out if they can make a good call on this one.
When hopefully he was paying attention to that run of Derek Bargy that went 306 and 67, the farthest run of any of our turbines out here. And Shannon's going to try to take a lesson from that run and try to apply some of those things that he saw to his dirt challenger. The fire, just a little bit of change there in the motor as the overspeed device kicks in.
And the chassis kind of sashaying around just a little bit there and never really got a hold of it again. 251.24. So probably the big surprise, I would think, has to be Ken Vini. Late in the pole, late in the category, comes out here and lays these guys out by more than 10 feet.
You know, it's just amazing. The buntage is strong all season, and then Ken Vini just coming in and whooping on him.
Awesome stuff right there, and there's a look at the final results courtesy of Rockstar, and there's a look at your points. Just 6 separating the top 2, that courtesy of MagnaFlow.
One of the last guys to go, and in this weather, nobody thought that being one of the last in line was going to be a benefit. It worked with you, and it's so good to see you back.
Well, I'm glad to be back. Even though I'm still out there with my old tractor that we had to repair, I think that it works just great. I love my old Farmall tractor. Tonight, I just happened to do the right thing at the right time and made a good competitive pull.
Congratulations, as Ken Vini is back.
It was a solid show. The fans had a solid time. They got a little wet, and that happens from time to time, but you know what? They got to see something a little bit different. We hope you enjoyed it as well. Hopefully you were dry at home watching the Lucas Oil Motorsports Hour. For Crash Gladys and Leslie Mears, I'm Ken Stout. We certainly enjoyed bringing you all the action here from the America's Fair Pulling Nationals presented by General Tire. We'll see you next time. There's one pull left and championships to be decided.